In 2006, when government announced the discovery of commercial quantities of petroleum in the Albertine Graben, speculation was rife in the public sphere. However, the oil contracts were shrouded in secrecy. A year earlier, in 2005, Parliament had passed the Access to Information Act, in which the state is obliged to provide information on its programs and projects. Two journalists working with the Daily Monitor, Charles Mwanguhia and Angelo Izama, wrote to the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development requesting for copies of the production sharing agreements signed between government and the oil exploration companies.
Government was saying we have made good negotiations with the oil companies on the sharing, and we thought it was a good opportunity to do two things. One was to increase government openness on its oil program, but number two was also to subject a law we had followed closely to a test.
The duo received two separate replies, one from the Solicitor General and another one from the Ministry of Energy.
They're saying these documents contain non-disclosure clauses with the oil companies who operate in the private space, in the private sector, and they also contain information that we think is of a security nature, so we can't just access it to you. Actually went to court around 2007, got a ruling around 2009 from the Magistrates Court. We filed an appeal that is still hanging in the Supreme Court, in the High Court.
Uganda was among the first African countries to pass a law granting access to information, and today the country joins the rest of the world to commemorate the International Day for Universal Access to Information.
The Ministry of ICT and National Guidance instituted the Information Access Center and the Government Citizen Interaction Center, which have continued to promote access to information to the public.
However, there is still ignorance among citizens and public officials about the existence and importance of the law. Data from Twaweza's Sauti za Wananchi nationwide survey shows that 25% of those interviewed believed that they would get information from their local authorities about district development plans or budgets, while 24% believed they would get information about drug stockouts from their local health center. Moses Watasa, the Commissioner for Communication and Information Dissemination in the ICT Ministry, insists that the Access to Information Act is part of the bid for greater openness and accountability to the public by the government.
For example, now we are just starting the budgeting cycle for next financial year. So the public needs to be part of the budgeting process. What are the priorities? We have the National Development Plan, the NDP3. We also have the manifesto, the NRM government manifesto for 2021-2026. A lot of programs. Yeah? We need to involve people in the implementing of the programs. For example, now we have the parish model, which is a new program. People need to know as much as possible about the parish model.
In the Twaweza survey, 72% of respondents believe government should only be able to restrict access to information when the information is vital to national security. John Asimwe, the engagement officer at Collaboration on International ICT Policy for East and Southern Africa, or CIPESA, says the principle of the right to access information is inseparable from freedom of expression.
Information is, I would call it, power. If you have information, then you're able to even navigate your way around anything. Knowing that Parliament is currently discussing a specific matter that in the end it will have an impact on how we live our lives, I think it's important. And the fact that there are some of the provisions that allow even the citizens to engage.
Every day, government dispenses billions of public resources and makes decisions that affect citizens. For instance, billions of shillings have been poured into the fight against COVID-19, but transparency and accountability have been sporadic. Gilbert Sendugwa, the Executive Director of Africa Freedom of Information Center, or AFIC, says people need information to hold public officials accountable for their decisions.
6 years ago, government initiated the Operation Wealth Creation Program. So the question is, for people on the street, for people in markets, how is this program running? How can we access, information on how we can benefit?
Government has 1 hour a week of public education airtime on the 319 radio stations across the country. Twaweza's Sauti za Wananchi data shows that most citizens point to radio as their source of information. However, only 61% completely trust the information heard on radio.
We also tell the public that we have a law in place under which you can push us to give you information if you think we are not responding quickly enough. But the main reason we go out is actually to initiate the process of giving out information.
The Access to Information Act provides for public entities to disclose information about their functions, tender details, and recruitment and hiring details, among others. A person seeking information may apply in writing to the accounting officer. The officer is expected to process the information and make it available. However, cabinet minutes and minutes of committees, information relating to privacy of a person, national security, or international relations cannot be released. With only 7,190 information requests so far received on the government's online portal, bureaucracy and blatant refusal to release information are the major challenges to this act. Data from the Twaweza survey shows that 54% of requests for information were granted. The proportion of requests being declined has risen from 5% in 2019 to 36% in 2020.
It's sad that we have an act on the law books that is, for all intents and purposes, largely dysfunctional. Government still releases the information that it wants to release. Journalists still access the information the way we have always accessed it, which is through relying on sources. There is very little proactive release of public information, especially that which is considered sensitive.
The Uganda Public Service Standing Orders 2010 and the Official Secrets Act 1964, which require every public official to take oaths of allegiance and secrecy, are another stumbling block.
The law takes precedence, but also the law is very clear on who this information should be requested. If it's from the district level, the request has to be put to the COW. Same thing for the ministry, it has to be the permanent secretary.
There are some of us who hide behind those clauses to decline giving out information. So we have a blessing from the president to actually revisit even some of the aspects of the standing orders.
The cost of access to information can also be prohibitive, with some government departments charging as much as 10 million shillings for a record. The Act does not provide for payment for access to information. The law provides for appeals or court action in case an information request is not honored within 21 days.
The process will probably be too long. By the time the court, now even with COVID and not handling as many cases, and there's so many people in prisons, I bet the judiciary would prioritize the murder cases and others compared to the access to information. And one of the conversations we're having in the previous years when we're advocating for the implementation of the law is, can we then have a tribunal instead?
CPESA also advocated for the change in parliamentary rules and privileges to compel ministers to submit an annual report to Parliament on requests for information in their ministries so far received.
But we still have a challenge. While the rules of procedure have put that requirement in place, the Public Finance Management Act that supports the whole process of the budget and all that does not include the access to information report in the ministerial statement. So we're still seeing the same situation. I am sure ministries have started working on the policy statements, and so the ones for 2022 to 2023, we'll most likely not have this report.
The commemoration today is designed to mobilize governments, civil society, and decision makers to meet the 16th goal of the UN 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which calls for promotion of just, peaceful, and inclusive societies. Gillian Nantume, NTV Tonight.